Live, yeah, we are. Looks like we're live. Right, okay, hope the audio's coming through. Just was reading this, obviously been reading this book, The Road Less Travelled, M. Scott Peck. Some people think it's a relationship book, but it's more of a psychology book, right? And I read this section earlier, so I'm just gonna, it's talking about psychosomatic diseases, right? And I'll just read it. I mean, all right, for the benefit of what that means, psychosomatic, right? I've just sort of looked up on my computer. Psychosomatic from the dictionary, right? It's of a physical condition caused or aggravated by the mental factor, such as internal conflict or stress. Pretty much explains, right? So it's like something, a symptom that is made worse by stress. Now, in this book, he's talking about like the concept of resistance is most commonly applied to infectious diseases such as meningitis, or it can be applied to all sorts of physical diseases in one way or another. Blah, 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 right. And then it says, an individual may suffer a single relatively mild attack of ulcer, what the hell? I'm not good at reading medical terms. Ulcerative colitis, a disorder generally accepted as psychosomatic, right? And they can suffer from that. So like maybe an ulcer, like a stomach ulcer or something, right? Or maybe a mouth ulcer or something, right? This is something that's psychosomatic. Then they can recover completely and go on to live a normal life without ever experiencing it again, right? That's known. And then it says, another may have repeated attacks and become chronically crippled by the disorder. And then it said a third may demonstrate a fulminating course and go on to die rapidly from even the first attack. Right. The disease appears to be the same, but the outcome is totally different for all those three, right? Why? We have no idea except to say that the individuals with a certain personality pattern seem to have different types of difficulty in resisting the disorder, while the majority of us have no difficulty whatsoever. How does this happen? We don't know, right? All we know is this sort of thing can be psychosomatic, right? And this morning I did a podcast with my jiu-jitsu coach, Glyn Powditch. It's going to take me a while to edit it, and then I'm going to release it. And in there, Glyn has just launched a new instructional on BJJ Fanatics. I might, after this is done, I might drop the link down below. And it's called Breathing to Win. Glyn does with us a lot is understanding the power of breathing and how that can get you through those difficult situations, especially in like a fight scenario where you might be like being crushed and being absolutely smashed. Being able to breathe through difficult situations when you're under immense pressure is like absolutely huge. And we had a bit of a chat about this because Glyn had also got a lot of this off. Basically, it's like the whole Gracie foundations, basically, like the breathing techniques. And he'd learned a lot about this, and he's got this kind of like video coach and all that kind of thing. And what he was saying is that this breathing, once you start learning how to breathe properly, like belly breathing and stuff, and understanding how to fill your lungs up without your shoulders rising and stuff, it benefits you in terms of that situation under any pressure. It also benefits you in other areas of life, like calm you down. Everyone knows that breathing techniques, if you listen to anyone like Joe Dispenza and stuff, he's talking about breathing techniques to calm you down, reduces your anxiety and stress, and also helps you sleep at night, and a whole range of other factors, right? Even in business. And he also mentioned it, like he plays a lot of chess, so chess, and these like grandmasters and stuff, when they're in these competitions, you can start to panic. There's like a chess psychology element that goes with it. They're actually trained on like it's like any kind of competitive game. There's a psychology to it, so you don't lose your head, because if you lose your head, you lose the game. And they do even breathing exercises, which is weird. But you can see how it works. Like myself, I do meditation coaching with, my coach, Roberto. I've talked about him, he's on my channel, I've interviewed him. And we do breathing exercises. It's absolutely massive, right? To bring down your, if you've got like a heightened state, it'll calm you down, keep you in the moment, calm you down. And it's particularly, if you're a sort of person that's got a lot of anxiety, this can be flipping massive for you, right? So when we're talking about this kind of, hang on, let's just launch my computer up. When we're talking about these psychosomatic diseases, right? It's got here, what are the symptoms, if I can tell if it's psychosomatic? I'm just reading off my computer, just done a bit of a Google search. It's got things like chest pain, feeling like your heart is racing, right? And this is when you're in that kind of fight or flight or heightened state where you're panicking. It messes about with your heart rate variability, and your heart's just going all over the fucking place. You're breathing. You've got exhaustion, trouble sleeping, insomnia. Have you ever woke up at 2 in the morning with something on your mind and you can't get back to sleep, and you're like, no matter what you do, you can't sleep until you have to kind of resolve something in your head or go and fix something in the middle of the night just to be able to sleep. A way around that is breathing deep breaths, like, try and put yourself into that calm state. A few deep breaths will help you get back to sleep. You've got here heartaches and dizziness, shaking or tremor, high blood pressure, muscle tension. Yeah, I can get on board with that. Muscle tension comes when you're, it's like, they call it like a tightness, and you can feel shoulders or your chest, and then stomach or digestive problems. This is like where you get the issues with like stomach ulcers. And it's generally, it's generally stress. Now, I've always been really good. I've got a really high stress tolerance. I've always had that. But I think only until the last few years have I really become, let's say, getting properly from this perspective. I think even though I had good tolerance to stress, I like mass tolerance. I'd just sort of bear the pain. Inside I might have been screaming or whatever, but I was just sort of masking it, really, just, by sort of carrying the burden. Whereas these days, I've done so much work with Roberto and, mindfulness education and all that kind of thing. And we do these like 1-minute breaths, where you only take in one breath in and out every minute. And you might go like 10 seconds in, slow, inhale, hold seconds, and then exhale for 20, and then repeat. And my target is always to get a 1-minute breath. So let's say we do, I don't know, let's say you test yourself over 5 minutes, you might get 6 breaths. That's nearly 1-minute breaths. It's absolutely transformational. The stuff that Glyn does with us in jiu-jitsu training, it's more about understanding the pressure. You've got these kind of like soul stealer or scarf holds, all these like holds where you've got immense pressure on your chest, and the person that's on top of you is basically squeezing the life out of you. So you've got if you can imagine, let's say you can only fill up your lungs by 10%. You can if you calm down and don't panic and be slow. And it's the same when I do my meditation coaching with Roberto. One of the other exercises that he has me do is basically don't flipping move, right? And it could be for 10 minutes, and take the small breath possible, just like sipping, barely moving. And you can only do that if you calm down. So breathing is well known and well documented to help lower stress. Right? I'm lucky I'm not an anxious person, but if you are, you ought to be looking at these things. There's certain things that you can do. Obviously, breathing's one of them. What are the things that you could do to lower chances of psychosomatic symptoms or diseases? Right? If you're always getting ulcers or something like this, or you're getting a lot of stress, because a lot of stress basically just puts you in fight or flight, and if you're constantly there, it will shorten your life. So the things I would say that I've done that help me: breathing, yes, absolutely, mega. Breathing exercises, meditation. You can breathe and meditate, they go together, to be more mindful. I would say journaling, obviously, because journaling is also about mindfulness. It's like writing your thoughts down, processing, and just reading, you know what I mean? It's them fundamental habits that I talk about, right? And that's what you need to do. Something like Glenn's course, which is aimed at, say, in a martial art, like understanding how to not panic. That's a bit different, right? But it is absolutely massive. And all these things, it's like we were saying, certain that you practice in life become like motor skills that are then transferable. So like all the breathing stuff, it's transferable into everything. It's transferable into performing in your fitness, right? You can always tell. So if you're like, doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're in the gym or whether you're on a bike ride, like or running, or maybe you're doing a martial art, one of the ways to tell who's winning is always who's breathing the heaviest. So if you're like nasal breathing, you're only breathing through your nose, you're super calm, and your opponent is like mouth breathing the gas in out. Who's likely to win, right? So all that kind of breathing technique is transferable to so many areas of life, right? It's also transferable in, competitive games, even things like chess, business negotiations where you don't panic, helps you sleep at night. Another really little weird one that we talked about, imagine you started diving. Glyn said, like, what happens if you just started diving? If you'd already trained yourself with breath work, you're going to have that advantage straight away, aren't you? Because you're going to need, all right, the breath work is going to be different for diving, but because you've trained yourself in some form of breath work, it's like a motor skill that you can transfer. So yeah, there's not really much else I can say. I just found it interesting, thought I'd point it out. Like I say, you want to reduce stress it all comes from sort of mindfulness, letting go. How do you get there? You're sort of working on is it your parasympathetic nervous system or your vagus nerve stuff, right? Your heart rate variability and all that. Breathing, meditating, journaling, reading, being mindful, right? And also working on things like letting go and, your anger. And the final point I would say is things like anxiety and, trauma and all that. You can't get rid of it, right? If you've got high anxiety, you can't get rid of it. And a way that, like Roberto talked about this is, rather than trying to like heal yourself and get rid of all this, you shouldn't be trying to do that. You should just accept that it's there. It's like an arm or a leg, right? You can't get rid of it. Accept that it's there, but you can rise above it through techniques, through training. Things like meditation to me is just training. It's just training to become better. Things like breathing, training to become better. Same with the martial arts stuff, same with anything. Same with reading, same with journaling, right? You are training yourself on habits to become better and better and better. So whilst you can't get some kind of trauma or anxiety or high stress or whatever, just accept. I think one of the biggest things you can do is just accept it and then literally just try and rise above it through training, developing more, doing more of the things that are going to help it. And that's it. Right, I'm going to shoot because I've got a bit more work to do, then I'm going in the gym. All right. So thank you very much for listening. Don't forget, like the video, right? Subscribe, and wait till the interview comes out with Glenn. It'll probably take me a while to edit, but yeah, I'm going to get it out as soon as I can. All right. Have a nice day. Right. See you all next time.